So today is an update. Today is Tuesday. I believe it is July 8th. No, July 9th. Yesterday, on July 8th, I got some of the mail from the courthouse that I was waiting for. That is the date of the court date. Now, it's combined an eviction and the paper for withholding rent that we wanted to file originally before the eviction started. Now, there's also a video that will be revealed in October that can't be used until after October connected with this eviction. Now, I really usually just, every fight I've ever got in, if they threw me through a door, I grab them by the throat or shirt, pull them on the ground, we roll around while I smack them in the stomach and head. That's usually how it goes. But because I knew this was going to be going to court and there was a camera right there, I just screamed like a little baby, oh, call the police. Plus, I'm on crutches and canes. I just peed black. My kidneys are failing. And I don't want them to get any worse because I think they're going to get better. But of course, this guy's throwing me on the ground, damaging my kidneys, making them worse. I could have grabbed his neck and pulled him to the ground, but instead I just whined like a little baby on the camera and then called the police. Now, that's not my style, and it makes me look awful. And I think I even put it on Facebook, the video of the landlord and me on the Ring camera. It's really short, and it really doesn't do justice to the situation because the landlord was literally getting in an old man's face, 84-year-old. You got just him swearing, calling people names. You got him doing all this because I asked him to fix a window. That's it. I just pointed to the window. I said, that's leaking water. These bedrooms have been closed up for 3 years. We need our bedrooms. We cannot have water damaging our property. He called me a junkie or something like that, even though I've never done drugs since I've been up here. Just alcohol. I was just drunk on cans. He knows I have beer cans when I first moved up here. But guess what? This landlord is drunk as he's speaking to me. So I happen to point that out. You look like you're on alcohol right now, what it really did. Some people just say it, but no, he definitely is sick and trying to drown it with alcohol and cough medicine. You can see it very well in him. And he's on some type of, on a lot of medications. He's in his 60s and his health is failing, so they got him on like a bunch of cocktails, and he's definitely, this landlord is partly high and he's feeling like shit. He's feeling like shit like I'm feeling like shit. But he's trying to take that out on his tenants. I'm not taking that out on him. I'm asking him to keep his apartments livable. If you're gonna rent an apartment to a person, you can't have the person die just because you want to neglect the apartment for 15 years and let water leak into the walls for another 20 years or whatever. I mean, the apartment above me has a 2 inch by 2 inch hole. Mine is 3 inch by 3 inch and then extends all the way out about maybe a foot and a half, and that leaks straight into the wall. And as you can see how it leaks down the wall sometimes too. So that's just one example of the neglect. Now you might say, well, does he know about it? Yes, he's been shown pictures. He's been shown videos. You can see it from the outside of the building when you pop up, and that's only one of hundreds of very visible problems. Like there was lights out in the hallway. How do you miss that? How do you miss completely blackness? He left the apartment one time at about nighttime. There wasn't much light coming from the window downstairs, and even he was feeling his way to the wall. And I closed the door to block off my light when he was halfway down the stairs. I let him get down a little bit, and then I said, what am I doing? Leaving this door open so he can see his way down all the way. And I closed it. Make him put in a light. You want to see your way down? Put in a damn light. So there was no lights, and you got an 84-year-old who has paperwork from his doctor saying that because of his chemotherapy, he should have lights on in the hallways at nighttime. And nobody cares one bit. My GI infection is most likely from the drinking water, I found out. And the court date is July 16th, not July 22nd. Yes, the court date we have to go to is going to be on July 16th. And this is what gave us an extension. Apparently, they filed the paperwork where the judge was going to come last Friday if we didn't file this paper right here. This is a different wording of the letter I struggled to write last time. That was awful. What I called my last draft, I then brought to the clerk's office and had them help me rewrite it. That's always the plan. Because my hand shakes when I try to write, and I have to speed through it, or I just end up not being able. I mean, I can write if I'm copying, but if I'm just coming up with it in my brain, what the hell happened, that's a little different. If I'm reading something like from a book and then I have to explain what I read, that's a little easier. But if you're asking me to write something like how the landlord illegally had his maintenance come to the window, scream, I'm suicidal, I'm going to kill myself, make noises like that, and then go to the side, stay out of sight, make a phone call to make a false complaint. Then they ride off on a motorcycle as I'm on the phone with a detective so he can hear everything that's going on. And what it is a little trick that they're trying to pull. The landlord sent his maintenance to try to sound like me. The was sounding like me in the hallway. They tried to make their voice sound high pitched. Well, it didn't really sound like me, but if you didn't know me really well, you might think so. Then they called and made a complaint that people in 3J are outside screaming. Luckily, I got ahead of this and they heard it, so that didn't matter. But I have to deal with this shit out my window. People trying to set me up for false complaints because the landlord's too much of a little bitch to repair his fucking apartments. Oh, he needs so many vacations because he's a little bitch that he's allowing people to have thousands of dollars damage to their property, have their lungs damaged, their heart damaged, have a bunch of their body damaged, have their children damaged, have their pets damaged, have their property damaged because this landlord can invest. And he's been raising rent $100 every single year since I moved in. I started renting here at about, I think it was 750 or 800, something like that. I think it was 700 actually. I'm not sure. It was between 700 and 800 I started renting here, and now it's over $1,000. Yes, my rent's over $1,000. Now, the first couple years, it was $50 every year. Then he started raising it $100 in the last 3 years or so. $100 this year, $100 last year, 50, 50, 50, and 50, whatever that is. So, no, I didn't start at 600. $100 last year, 2023. $100 for 2022. $50 for 2021. Nothing for 2020, maybe. Anyways, yes, it's been going up rapidly since I moved in. 6-7 years is all I've had, and our rent has gone up by a total of $300, and he wants to make it $1,200 by the end of this year. So by 2024, our rent would have gone up by over $500. Meanwhile, our incomes are staying exactly the same. Not a single person living in any of these buildings have got a raise to account for these raises on our milk. Our milk has gone up, our bread, and our rent was ridiculous compared to wages when I moved in. When I moved in here, $8.50 was what most of these businesses paid minimum wage. You were lucky to get 10. What I get paid now was minimum wage now. Or actually 11 is what I got paid now. But anyways, so if you're getting paid, let's say $10 an hour, and you move into here, and your rent is $700, your electric is $350 to $400. Your food budget is $200, and your transportation budget is $400. This is 6 years ago prices. You still won't make it. But nowadays, you're still getting the $10 an hour at the same place. I'm not talking about staying there either. I'm talking about hirees. People getting hired at the gas station, Cumberland Farms, are getting paid about the same money now that they were getting paid 6 years ago, and the rent is almost 1.5 times what it was. And now I have to file letters. Meanwhile, all this is just caused by the landlord being sore that we wanted the windows fixed. So he ran like a little baby to the courthouse to say we refused to pay rent because we were going to get paperwork in that he saw with his own hand. We're trying to pass him paperwork, and he's refusing to take anything with the damages. He was really butthurt about it. He refused to take the rent that we had for him. Then he assaults me, making it harder for me to go right back to work and get money to pay him in the first place. So it's a double whammy there. Any judge would take this case up and see that there's a very clear problem with the landlord, not with us. We had the money for rent. We were handing it to him. The next month, I could have returned back to work and paid the next month's rent, but we wanted our window fixed. If I'm going to go back to work injured, I am not going to continue breathing in waterfall mold. I'm not going to continue sleeping with a cat on my face and a colostomy bag on my arm. There's no reason for me to be living this way in a studio if I have a 2-bedroom. So if I'm going to be living in a studio and my landlord's going to be charging me for a 2-bedroom, and if my landlord's going to be charging me for windows, but I don't get a window, I expect one hell of a fucking discount. If I'm going to be renting an apartment that I get a studio and no windows. If I get no windows, a studio with bugs crawling all over me, if that's what I get out of a 2-bedroom, then I don't expect to be paying this. And there's a proper way to proceed here, and that's what I was doing. I told the landlord, I was giving him the letter that just tells him what the damages are. We were paying our rent. Then we go to the courthouse and we filed to withhold our rent. From there, after we filed to withhold our rent, at that point, we go to court. When the judge says we can withhold our rent, that's when we went to withhold our rent. But see, my roommate wanted to do everything his own way. He wanted to pay half, he said. I want to pay half. Everybody told him he couldn't do that. That doesn't work. If you pay half, the landlord still evicts you. You still get an eviction if you try that. You will lose your money and get evicted. He tried that last year and the year before, and all he did was cause more problems because we couldn't get welfare then. They said if David only gives $100 a month to the landlord, the eviction notice still goes through, and the welfare cannot go through because the amounts keep on changing on the paperwork. And then a lot of times the checks get canceled because David is not listening to the welfare office, and that can affect me. Like, for instance, even though I'm doing all this right, last year I filed paperwork like this. I got a $2,000 check, and I got back to work on time. I was still injured. I shouldn't be going back to work, but it's only part-time. I find out, though, that people didn't listen, and my roommate and my landlord got my welfare check canceled. I find this out from the welfare office. They said all the landlord and David had to do was nothing. But instead, David made a half-assed $100 payment when he wasn't supposed to, changing the dates that need to be filed, so I have to refile my welfare. So I went down, and then the landlord called me and asked me why the check's no good. He went to cash a $2,000 check from welfare, and it didn't work. I told him to call welfare. He did, and it was a bummer. Then I'm in welfare. I asked them to refile. At this time, they tell me they can't because I'm going back to work part-time. I let them know going to work part-time will only pay the upcoming rent. I'll only get about $100, $200 a month. That only pays the upcoming rent. I won't be able to take care of the back rent. If they don't take care of the back rent, we will be evicted. For sure. They say, why doesn't David, your roommate, take care of the back rent then? You're injured and you're not even supposed to be going back to work right now. I said, then it won't get done and we'll lose everything. I know David. he'll say, no, 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 I don't have the money. Like somehow I have the money to be doing all this shit for the last 6 years. So, what I ended up doing is I ended up asking my manager if she could help. And of course, she said she could by overloading me with hours. And then I ended up getting more and more hurt. And instead of my GI being the only problem, then I started pissing black urine because either an infection or blood or something started to really destroy my kidneys. 3 days after the black urine, I was bent over screaming in pain because there was something wrong with my kidneys. But the doctors told me if I went back to work like this, that would happen. But I had no choice in the matter. It was either that or lose everything. Those were my choices. Now, originally, my choice was collect the $2,000 check, clear out the back rent, work part-time while going to the doctor. Great plan, I thought. And as long as I'm really careful not to lift, I wouldn't get hurt again. But instead, other people were involved. There was an 84-year-old, my roommate, who got involved. After 3 people told him not to do something, he did exactly that something. The landlord was also told not to change the numbers, but he asked for his money and was being harassful. He was harassing us for money on a regular basis. So when I was when I was gone at work, just right back or whatever, of course, the landlord comes by, where's my money? Where's my money? Intimidating, getting in his face. And David goes by, grabs whatever $20 bills he got, gives it to the landlord. And of course, then that cancels the $2,100 check. And then David cries that he doesn't have $2,000, of course. So then it's on me to come up with the back rent. So then I pay not only my rent, but me and David's back rent too. And I cleared that up about 5-6 months ago, back around January. I finally cleared that up, or maybe it was December. And then I got injured about February, of course, because I'm not supposed to be doing this stuff, lifting. Also, my coworker got fired. We also were short-handed, and all my coworkers say they can't lift. And the one coworker who supposedly can lift is leaving 16 bags to pile up in his trash day. I don't actually do it, but I'm trying to get other people to do it. I'm already injured, so I decide, oh my God, I'm injured. I can't be doing this. But I tough it out, and I tough it out for a little bit longer, and I shouldn't be doing that because then I get hospitalized and in more problems. And then I couldn't walk myself to the hospital because I kept going again. I'm not good at stopping. I'm good at pushing through and working through the pain. I'm good at that, but I push it too far, and then I end up with permanent injuries. Nobody else bleeds into their testicles, bleeds internally, and goes to work. Just me. And that's because my father was having me literally poisoned in the morning, puking up all different types of stuff. My mother would give me a full bottle of Epicac. There'd be all different types of problems, and I'd be sent to school the next day. Like, for instance, I got hit by a car, and it actually did fuck up my arm and shoulder pretty bad. Now, I didn't want to stay at the hospital, so I just let them do the x-rays and I left. I was in a state program, and they don't care what the fuck. They're not paying for shit. But I was in school that same next day, always. If I got hit by a car, it doesn't matter. I'm in school the next day. That's always how I was. Still today, just this year alone, or about this time last year, I was bleeding internally in my GI 2 inches from the belly button, and gravity was pulling it down to my testicles. And the primary care at Goodwin that was covering for my primary care, that is exactly what he put down. He put down internal bleeding, gravity, that's it. He said I need to see a specialist. That's all he could tell me. He could tell me that's blood in your testicles and it's coming from the pain in your belly button area. And that's all he could tell me. So we don't know exactly what in my GI was causing that, but guess what? I'm back to work. Why? Why would I do that? Do I like doing it? No. No. If I don't, I have to live in the woods like an animal. Thanks to my mother's and father's decision-making skills, they made sure that I couldn't hold a job unless I was willing to get injured on a regular basis. Now, you might be confused how that could be possible. Nobody lives like that except for me. Nobody else had my mother. Well, see, what my mother did is she lied to doctors. She cried wolf about mental illnesses. Like 105 different illnesses, she would cry wolf to doctors within a 15-year period. When I was age 7, she was taking my swimming medals to the doctors with me and saying that I had attachment disorder, I make up fantasies, I'm out to get her, I'm writing my name on the back of the medal, I'm a liar, I'm a thief. It's an African American's medal because I'm not athletic and I'm no good, and the African American is athletic, so it must be his. And my mother screaming these things at the doctors. And this was the start of it, but she did this every year all the way to age 19 when she passed away from drinking and pills, which shut down her liver over a long period of time, and nobody helping her with this. I was one of the few people who actually knew my mother had a problem with pills and alcohol. My father knew she had a problem with alcohol but didn't want to tell anybody. And I think my brother, my nephew, my sister, I think all of them knew my mother had a problem with alcohol too. But my father's fine with alcohol. He does great with booze. Anyways, so we had that going on year after year. Now, the way this works is if you cry wolf to the doctor for 15 years hiding your son's real illness, like let's say your son has a neurological disorder where he has problems moving his legs with muscle spasms, he falls down, has seizures once every 4 years, every so often, like that. Well, the mother literally moves her son to a new town, a new state every 2 years. So that way, none of the old people, you go from Massachusetts to Texas, Texas to New Mexico, New Mexico to Maine, Maine to Mass, Mass to Mass, Mass to Maine, Maine to Mass, Mass to Florida, Florida to Mass, Mass, Mass. You just keep on keeping him moving, and nobody can get a read on his actual illness. And as long as the mother continues to act like she knows it all, I already know what's wrong with him. It's a neurological disorder. He's autistic. It's bipolar. It's anxiety. It's a attachment disorder. Oh, he's not really mad at me. He's really mad at his biological mother. Oh, no, no, I know everything about him. Yeah, the last 24 hours I spent with him, I know everything. This was my mother's attitude, and she did this at doctors all the time, all the way, and she brainwashed me into believing nonsense too. So all the way to age about 23, I was going along with the program. My mother and father told me if I ever stopped taking all these drugs, I would get sick. Something would happen to me bad. I would become super bipolar and ADHD, and I would all of a sudden be up and down and up and down and up and down. Instead, I leveled up at a up. I just just leveled off, and a little bit of a up. That's it. The only time I ever get sad or depressed is if I'm in the woods freezing to death with nowhere to go. Of course I am. I've never even had a chance to survive. The whole plan for me was to die or be on Social Security. Those were the only future plans that my mother and father set up for me. If they try to say it wasn't because I worked hard enough, where was I supposed to work hard in New Mexico to get an education? Tell me that. Where was I supposed to work hard in Maine? And when you drop me off in a public school in Chelmsford, that is impossible for any kid missing 3 years of education. Plus, you're drugging the shit out of me. If you want to blame me that I didn't try hard enough, then you need to take one of my medications and then try to do something. And then you can talk to me. But you can't drug the shit out of me, make me live for 3 years with no education, no teachers, and then blame the kid because you did those things. You poisoned your child. You destroyed his health. He has a neurological disorder. Your own mother is trying to hide that fact because it's an embarrassment. She slipped her kids pills too many times, and she's still doing it. She's lying to doctors, and if she ever gets caught, she'll be in so much trouble. So she's lying and drugging, lying and drugging, lying and drugging. Now, the kid's too young to know what's going on. But we're also moving from place to place. Now I'm age 31, and all I need is to be able to go to a neurologist and have him write down the truth of what I'm saying, so that when I move to another state and I have a seizure and they don't know who I am, they know what to do is give me epilepsy medication. They will know what to do. And when I go to work, if I have a fall or my legs stop working and I have to take an ambulance and I can't talk, they'll know what to do. But instead, I go to the neurologist. I tell them what's wrong, and they scratch their heads going, how could this be? Your mother and father said that you're just crazy, crazy. You're a pyromaniac. You have all this, that. I said, what were those based upon? Well, your pyromaniac was because your mother said you were lighting animals on fire. No, I wasn't. You weren't lighting animals on fire. Your mother was lying about that. Yes, I never once, ever hurt an animal in my life at all on purpose. Never, ever, 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 ever. The kid next door, that was psychopath, that rich fat ass next door, the rich fat one, that was gay and trying to have sex with younger kids. Yeah, he liked to burn things.